most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Racehour, sponsored by Bet365 and Gambling.com. I'm your host Stephen Cass, joined as ever by Diarmuid, Nolan and Tony Keenan. And Dermo, our numbers are up. We did a call out for subscriptions and retweets and all that kind of stuff. And I'd say we want to say thanks to everyone for supporting us now, because it is getting to a point where we're delighted with how it's going, and just to say thanks for those that have supported us.
100%. Look, we're a long time on the road, and it's the highest number ever. Great to coincide with our biggest sponsor ever and everything else. So it's real positive year, Cass. And big thanks to everyone. There's a lot of people who've stuck with us from very, very earlier on, and I don't know how they stuck with us this long. But
Richie
anyway,
Hogan, number one super fan. Those kind of fellas.
Richie Hogan, there's a good few of them.
Load of English lads.
There's just
Yeah.
load of English lads, yeah. And we always meet them at Chella, just real kind of lovely people. So yeah, it's just a bit mad, and look, it's fantastic. Really is.
Very good, very good. And you had a good weekend all round. Leeds United snatching a draw against Liverpool out of nowhere. And how's your punting?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I had Twig on Saturday, which was the big one for me. And then Sunday, then I had two losers, but I read Tony Keenan's fantastic blog, agreed with his take on that race, but I ended up going for Calaconte instead of Break My Soul, and I was delighted with the result there. I thought she was excellent. So yeah, actually a good weekend all around, Cass. You?
Well, punting wise, sure, because we're going to start a Telegram service. That's why we're giving it the big up here. We're going to be starting a Telegram because our WhatsApp chat, the two boys, I'm kind of busy at the moment, as you know, so I wouldn't be putting the work into the card. So the two lads both put up a horse on the WhatsApp on Saturday. Tony, you telling me your one was 20-1 earlier on. I backed it at 9s anyway, and I backed Dermo's at 33s. Both winners. Unbelievable stuff. So Tony, only a matter of time before you go to upping the ante next year, we might start to get a few quid out of the listeners with some kind of a tipping service.
Yeah, well, definitely neither of those things will ever be happening. Yeah, my punting went okay. Just life stuff making them going great though, lads. I went to Disney on Ice yesterday in Belfast, right? And I was looking forward to a tip up the road nice and leisurely, left an hour to spare. Still managed to arrive to the show, but 20 minutes, half an hour late. Carnage trying to get into the place, the car park. Car parked over, but a couple of lads directing me here, there and everywhere. Finished up parking, 10-minute, 15-minute walk there. Absolutely soaked arriving into the place. Just fiasco. And trying to half watch a couple of races from Cork then on the phone as your woman is knocking out Frozen and whatever the hell else to sing at these type of things. I was asking who was the little rat in the middle of it. Apparently he's Stitch, lads. The lad that looks like a rat is called Stitch. So there you go. I should have probably known that, but there you go. Punting was okay. I should kind of leaning into that thing we were talking about last week. Elliot's horse is improving for the run. Managed to land on Road Exile and mainly Gringo Debrel on Saturday. And I suppose when the money came for Gringo Debrel, you kind of knew it was going to be the day with the sponsor owning him. And the last day he was kind of having a prep run, shall we say. And then on Sunday, kind of broke even. I did back Calaconte. The Break My Soul was the main bet in that race. She was disappointing. But decent weekend. And sure, hopefully we'll stay going.
Good. Then we mentioned watching race on the phone. I reckon it's a saving in many a punter's relationship, the fact you can watch these things on the phone. I definitely lost, girls broke up with me or whatever in 20s, because on a Saturday, living in Dublin, we go into Grafton Street or go for brunch or whatever. Like, sure, the 11:30 is on at Navan. I'll be staying at home now for the day watching racing on a Saturday. You couldn't go anywhere. And once the phone totally changed my love life anyway, I haven't been able to watch the racing on the phone. Happily married now, just to put that out there. The champion chase picture, Dermo, you have that now running order. It was a hell of a weekend for us. We had Ilete Tomp at Sandown and we'd Majborough looking roguish at Cork. What were your take on the two races?
Yeah, so I thought Ilete Tomp was excellent. A lot of plaudits going to Paul Town, and it was a cute ride up the inside as always, but still the horse was miles clear the other two. I thought Load of Sud, Dan Skelton said right before the race, when he was interviewed, that he pretty much had Load of Sud absolutely bang on for Cheltenham, and he wasn't sure how fresh he'd be, and he'll get him back kind of for Cheltenham. So I would have understood somebody not kind of giving up on him. John Bonds ran his best race, but look, he's miles off it now. He'll have to go up and trip. Majborough at Cork, I know he was going the wrong way, but it was a disastrous performance. Really, really bad. His jumping has just fallen to pieces since that kind of decent debut at Navan last year. The picture overall, I think, is as muddy as it's ever been. Ilite Tomp is a mad favourite because of the fact that, just like John Bond, he seems to wait for his run at Cheltenham to produce his worst jumping effort. He was the same in the Arkle. He was the same the year before in the Supreme. I just don't think he likes Cheltenham at all. Majborough, he can't jump at 2 miles. He's not a 2 miler. Willie Mullen said before the Triumph that he was amazed that this horse was even going for that race because of the fact that he looks a Gold Cup horse. I know they're all over the place, the kind of green and gold horses, but he can't jump at this speed. He just can't do it. And anyone backing Majborough for a champion chase, I think you're mad. Like, when you look at the champion chase now over the years, it's not always the best horse, as flashiest horse that wins the champion chase. It's the most solid horse wins that race. You're looking at Captain Guinness, you're looking at Politolo, you're looking at Dodging Bullets. A lot of those horses were racing against really fancied horses in it. Hey, even the year that Put the Kettle On won it. The rest of them kind of hit a few. She jumped them all kind of solidly and well. Majborough does way too much wrong. Way too much wrong. You can forgive Sunday. He was going the kind of wrong way around, but still, he just does it all wrong. I've actually ended up having a bet in this race. I think Quilixios at 33-1 is a very big price. I think he'll have 2 quiet enough runs, but I think he will end up shortening, I think, towards Cheltenham because of the rest of them floundering so much. Henry de Bromhead, when he spoke about him earlier on the season, it sounded to me like he outrun even their kind of expectations of him, and now they're going to give him a completely different prep. Last season, Quilixios went to the Tingle Creek, had a bad experience there, kind of didn't run very well. Then he went to the DRF, and they freshened him up. Now, I know people are going to be shouting at this, saying, but he fell. His fall was unlucky. He jumped that fence brilliantly. He just crumpled on the floor afterwards. I wouldn't be rulling that against him. But Henry de Bromhead's going to work him back now completely from Cheltenham. He'll have two really quiet runs. I say both at Leopardstown, and you'll see a completely different horse at Cheltenham. I think when you go through this market, from the favourite being Ilite Tomp, who doesn't like the place, you got Majborough, Sergino. Again, we've no idea with them two. Sergino can't jump. Majborough can't jump. Sergino nearly died. You're kind of going onwards there. So I would be saying that Quilixios at 33-1, Cass, I just think he's a very big price for a horse who Henry's going to have him there absolutely bang on. He wasn't far off it last year. I know Marie Nationale, he's still there to beat, but I don't know. I'd be saying here that Quilixios, he's as good as an awful lot of them there, and there's question marks over a lot of them, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I can see the case for sure. Yeah. I think you might nearly get a bigger price on the exchanges if you left it and let him had to spin around at Christmas. Do you know what I mean? If he was well beaten in you'll dial a bit.
I think by the factor of I think there's going to be so many of them floundering here at the top of this market that I think he could end up going off. Not a big, a very short price, but I think 33 is the upper end on what you'll get. But look, we'll find out in a few months anyway.
On Majborough, thinking of horses like Jasmine DeVoe and a horse that have had jumping problems. I wonder, 3 miles over hurdles is the least jumping you do in a race. I wonder, could that be a possible direction they go in with him? I just wouldn't like him jumping over any trip. I know you said 2 miles, but he jumps so markedly left and so low. He's just taking so many risks. I just wouldn't like him at all. I had a small bet at the throwaway comment. I did tenner at 200 on the exchange with Django Boy for the champion chase. If he doesn't stay in the King George, last year's Arkley winner, he's 200-1. So you could have a bit of crack with that if he didn't stay in the King George. But more importantly, Tony, what did you think? Take the two, Ilite Tomp at Sandown and Majborough at Cork. Not to not mention Found a 50, of course, but he's not looking like a great one horse.
Don't really have an awful lot different than what you're saying. I suppose what a lot of people are saying, Ilite Tomp has never got into a rhythm jumping at any point in any of his 3 Cheltenham runs, hurdles or fences, so I don't really have any graph or having anything to do with him for all it. He does look a cut above them on the last, not the Clonmel run, but the 2 Sandown runs. Majborough, I think you've said there, he jumped the ones in the straight fine on Sunday, and then there was a kind of a break because they bypassed the one away from the stands, and then he just fell asunder, making, I suppose, backing off some, going left at most of them, and then there was obviously a bad mistake 2 out and things like that. He seemed keen to run him back at Leopardstown at Christmas after this, which I wonder if he had a 1, would he have done that? oftentimes the horse that would win the hilly way or go well in the hilly way would miss Leopardstown, and it'd either be the DRF or Ascot. So now he kind of obviously feels remedial jumping work is needed. Lads, or Jim, you're on about Quilixis. Is there any chance he pitches up at Leopardstown and wins or runs very well? Like, that doesn't seem like a
A
particularly deep race.
Plutarch-esque.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Marine Nationale is going to be coming off a first time out as well. Is Found a 50 going to turn up? I don't know. Like Dino Blue to me probably should have beaten Found a 50 in Navan if she had jumped a bit better. Like Found a 50, Elliot has kind of said all along, well, the last year really, that he's a grade 2 horse. Like, are we really to expect that Found a 50 has improved there yesterday? I find that kind of hard.
He was
to
on
believe.
Sorry, Tony, to cross you. He was on Nick Luck's show today, and he pretty much wasn't saying he thinks he's improved at all. He thinks there's a lot of grade 2. He basically mentioned the Red Mills race as being his next big target, so he doesn't think he's improved at all. No.
Yeah, and like he Found a 50 to me. Look on the pin of his collar, like go down the back straight. He was kind of niggling at him, and he did find plenty. So I really wonder what kind of form that is. The time was a bit slower than the mares as well. And I actually backed an argument small in this. We kind of disappointed he couldn't raise a bit more of an effort now with Majborough, disappointing and stuff like that. But like, are we with Majborough? Like, is this kind of jumping a trait now, or do you think it can be something that can be ironed out? Because I just have a feeling that anytime I doubt Mullins, he just makes you look stupid. Like, is he going to be able to fix this? Do you think?
I think. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, can you think of really poor jumpers? Like the mad joke that Mullins had at the Wiley colours. Those they never seem to be cured. Now Gallopin Deschamps, I thought, was a poor
York
jumper.
Hill, you're talking about.
York Hill is the one. Yeah, like they don't ever seem to come out of it, do they? When they're really poor jumpers.
No, I looked into this because I was kind of making the case on Twitter rashly, very quickly, that I thought a lot of Mullins' 2-milers seemed to go asunder. I went through the numbers, as the numbers don't lie, as they say. So I went on to Horse Race Base. No, his 2-mile numbers are absolutely fine. Now, I do believe that these
crazy. Min, Underso, Shack and Boursois, these horses were all around for years, weren't they?
No, they were, but you can still counteract that with footpad York Hill to a degree, but he mentally spilled over. El Fabiola, once his jumping fell apart, it never came back. Majborough's mightn't come back. Blue Lord never came back again. There's a good few of them that over 2 miles, the top tier, the excellent horses, they're always going to keep going. Mullins has so many brilliant horses. That's my point, is that I could easily sit here and list you off a list of 20 horses that went wrong for Mullins over 2 miles grade 1s, but you can throw back 20 names, including Dino Blue, back at me. Mullins has so many good horses that I think statistically I was talking crap, because statistically you can statistically make any case on Mullins' grade 1 horses because he's so many of them. That's my point. So after the race I was able to say, oh, Majborough, and people were replying with everything from Facile Vega and these horses. The only thing is that 2-milers, it can happen where it just goes wrong. To me, Tony, Majborough, he doesn't jump to me like the best 2-milers do. I don't think you can win a champion chase with how cumbersome. Even his best performances, I went through a lot of them today at Leopardstown. He was even jumping markedly left at Leopardstown, got away with it. But last year he was still hitting them. He wasn't meeting them right at all. He ran away with Mark Walsh, but he still wasn't like fluent over them. He just, to me, doesn't jump like a 2-miler. So only one man can fix this, but I don't know how he does. I really don't.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Right, we're going through the Irish review first with you, Tony. There was a lot of good racing at Cork and at Navan at the weekend. You can just kind of rattle through the ones you want to talk about, and whatever you want.
So we start with Cork there. Probably good racing there. We kind of covered that race already. Mares race, I'd say the form kind of is what it is there. Calaconte, very likeable performance. I'd say Kyrgyz, there was a tough task going in against the kind of race fit mares there. I'd expect her to improve for the bit, and I'd say the winning distance of Calaconte was fairly exacerbated by Kyrgyz making was it a bad mistake, particularly at the last, kind of on 3 out, she wasn't great either. So I would expect her to improve for that. So where she goes next, come back to beginner's chase maybe if they want. Again, just shoot back to Navan in a minute, but the novice hurdle in Cork was kind of a poor affair. I think Calypso's chance didn't turn up. Interesting ride there from Donna Mailer on good girl Kathleen. Like everything else
the
go
inside,
wide. and him nipping right. Yeah, Cork on soft ground, I would say, can be favoured, but I've seen that once or twice where someone went up the inner and there was a kind of narrow seam of nice ground there. And look, maybe it wasn't the winning and losing of it. Lipster chance really didn't turn up, but it certainly didn't do any harm. Navan on Saturday, like kind of the absolute stiffest of stiff tests, that handicap hurdle that Gringo de Brel won. I thought Keneally was really good in him. I don't think he's actually a young lad. We're going to call him a young lad there. I think he's actually not been about a while, but only kind of turned pro recently. Like, I thought he was good early. He kind of rousted him along to wake him up at the start, to get him into kind of a half decent position, kind of forward part of mid division. Gradually moved forward mid race, and then kind of in the second half of the race, he went down the inner. And again, it was a bit like that race at Cork. He probably got to seam a nice ground, whereas everything else was going wide on chopped up stuff. Yeah, look, the horse has loads of stamina there, which is a help. Thought that Paddy's Milestone was a little bit better than the form, and that he just didn't last home. Again, no kind of issue there with a horse kind of not lasting home in that type of ground. Yet another kind of good winner there for Mullins. Mullins kind of, it's a little bit unusual. His novice chasers, particularly ones from beginners chasers, have been ready enough to do themselves justice. Like Predator's Gold, another winner off the back of Kit's Ball and what do you call him, Capitcha Pike, and all of his good ones
What
as well.
do you think of Slade Steele? What do you think of Slade Steele in the Predators Gold race, Tony? His jumping was a lot better.
I thought he did absolutely nothing wrong,
Yeah,
Stephen.
that's what I
thought. Beyond maybe that he looked to have sweated up a little bit, which wasn't a particularly positive on the day that it was, but I couldn't find fault with him otherwise. Attitude, if he finished out his race fine.
Yeah, I was watching it back there an hour ago because I didn't see it yesterday, and I was like, what has this head to ball done? I was kind of waiting to see, did he pack it in, but there wasn't any excuse. No. Predator's Goal just kind of outstayed him, didn't he? He was good, much better from Slade Steele, so I'll be interested to see what he does next. Yeah, I thought Dr. Steinberg was very good, Tony.
He was. I just don't know what that kind of form amounts to. Did Nolan's horse really stay the trip out, and then
travel like the rat of God him?
Yeah, I'd like to give Port Authority now another chance. I liked him in the Ace, and maybe that was a funny race. I just think he didn't turn up. I don't know, was he running back a bit quick because he had only had that was his first run ever. I think there was an excuse. Just let me find this. Blowing hard post race and had a graze too. So I just don't know what that kind of form amounts to. Handicap chase I thought was completely impossible before the race, but afterwards I thought Search for Glory ran a really nice race. Came forward a lot for the Tri-Town, but still was finding that trip a little bit sharp, got outpaced at the top of the hill and then has kept on. He's more down the inner, which usually isn't ideal at Navan, but Predator's Goal did come in that part of the track. Now, the interesting thing with him is I always thought he was a right-handed horse. Now, I don't know if the right-handed, left-handed thing really that true of a thing at times. It's definitely not something massively hanging your hat on. But his 5 wins have all been right-handed, but his last 5 runs have come on left-handed tracks. So I thought 3 miles right-handed. So the obvious answer to that is he goes to Gorn for the Piestis. And I would say that might suit him.
Who's that, Tony? Just repeat that one. Sorry, what horse was that?
Yeah, Search for Glory, Elliot.
Oh, yeah.
Search for Elliot, Jigginstown. Sorry, what I was saying about the Mullins, the maiden hurdlers don't seem kind of related to Reddy. Like a lot of skinny ones beating a Cork yesterday. Copa Cabana, he was completely dead in the betting now on Saturday. I think what was he put in, kind of 6 to 4, 7 to 4. He pushed out for 3 and 4 and 5 to 1 at points, I think. Actually, he ran really well, I thought. So I thought positive effort from him. But you know what I was looking at? I look at, again, picking holes at Mullins. There's usually a reason for all these things. Looking at the calendar, there are far fewer beginners chases in January and February. I think there might only be 6 or 7 beginners chases in the whole month of February in Ireland. If you don't win now, you're bothered. Like where are you running them? Whereas there's still loads and loads of maiden hurdles in January and February. There might be more maiden hurdles in January than there is December, say, despite there being many fewer meetings. So like he knows that. He looks at that. Yeah, we leave one. Look, you speak the first out in the maiden hurdle, sure, what harm? We can give it another spin there. Still plenty of time. There's still the DRF. There's still Cheltenham, Punches to the entry, Ferryhouse, the whole lot. So expecting a few of them kind of to come forward for that. Bumper horse. Geez, your man has showed a bit of
Colin Ryan.
A bit of something there. Colin Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah. Like fair play. Like the one at Christmas, not so you put it down to a fluke, but yeah, you've done it once, fair play to you. But to do it here, to land a gamble and to beat some kind of half decent yards now was a fair effort. I don't think the horse from Christmas ever ran afterwards, but you think this was a serious sales ring performance. There's hardly a sale now at Cheltenham Saturday evening or something after racing, is there? That might be the job. Like, you know, that there always seems to be at these meetings a post race sale. I wonder, is he entered in that?
I remember he said after, so the horse of Christmas was Karate Kid. And I remember he said he'd be going to a Cheltenham sale in January, and whatever happened there, don't know, you know. But this horse, a lot of the UK listeners won't have seen this, a lot of the Irish ones won't. Charismatic Kid, and oh my God, was he impressive the way he travelled. He was
class.
20 to 1 into 4 to 1. And he's Colin Ryan's only second winner. He's only training, you know, I think the horse of Christmas was the second ever runners. He's only ever had 6 runs on the track with whatever couple of horses he has. So yeah, he did say he expects this horse to go to Leopardstown at Christmas, but be in different colours. So I wouldn't be surprised if JP bought it and stuck with Colin Ryan, because he's a Limerick man and he's been around the houses. I think he was in with Richard O'Brien for a while, or, you know, he's been around there, and I'm sure he'd know the Martinstown connection. So, you know, I wouldn't be shocked now to see that horse in different colours, be it JP's, be it whoever's, but maybe still Colin Ryan training him at Christmas. But he's definitely a horse to watch. Anything else then at Navan and Cork, Tony?
Yeah, well, Sant Bacco, I suppose, of the Mullins maiden hurdlers, he was the one that won. I thought he put up a nice debut without him absolutely blowing me away. I thought that Lazard at start, who was second, I thought he looked a touch awkward now, and the finish was kind of hanging left, and that might be something to kind of watch. And then there was a grey blow in the McManus colour, showed a bit of head carriage coming down the hill, but did finish off. I don't know, was it attitude or what would you say, intent was the issue there, but we'll kind of see with that in the future anyway. And again, the Academy Hurdle, actually, Elliot had a horse ran really well in the Academy Hurdle, won in his own colours, a horse called what's this? Is Lynch's Knock. Good ride on the winner there, winner for Cromwell at a big price. I know they've been kind of struggling a bit on that.
Like that. Yeah.
Cornerstone Walsh kind of held in Lynch's Knock kind of up the straight and just waited. Lynch's Knock kind of got out too soon. But when he did kind of pull wide, he finished off to good effect. And just with the way Elliott's are improving, might well go back for another one of those Academy Hurdles. I'd say he'd be tough to beat.
Yeah, that was a good race. That Kilbarry horse is a good race as well. Whatever. Just sorry, now we're real Irish race talk. We don't know half the names of the horses we're talking about here. I'm just talking about the riddles. But of course, Jeff Academy Hurdle, if you were watching back. Dermo, the UK.
Kilbarry Lizzie, yeah.
Kilbarry Lizzie, yeah. The Dermo, the UK stuff was really good. No drama this end. Nichols hyped him up, backed off it a bit, but cheapers, the hype could really, really be on the money, because he was awesome, I thought.
Yeah, really, really well bred horse as well. Been walking the park and everything, so it was always going to be good. And I thought he was excellent. Yeah, he just travelled all over, and to travel like that at Sandown as well deserves even more respect. The bad ground at Sandown, jockeys would regularly say is one of the worst soft heavy grounds you can get. You know, horses can really get stuck in it. Like if you watch the London National at the end, the horses are finishing without air.
But the hurdles course, Dermo, is 10 times worse than the chase course. Do you know it's always the hurdles course. Like on Friday, it was good soft on the chase officially, and it was soft on the hurdles course. So I was saying to you, it's the novice hurdlers you really wouldn't want to be ever running at Sandown. I would never mind the chase course as much, but for him to do it like that was hugely impressive.
Last year, Ben Pauling said he regretted Diva Looney running there because she got stuck in the mud altogether. But no drama this end. Seriously impressive. But the UK, Cass, we have to whisper this for the moment, but they're producing. It's looking like there's a few very decent novice hurdlers over there, because Taurus Bay ran in the first at Aintree, and he beat Captain Hugo. Captain Hugo was trained by Hobbs and Matt Nichols, and this horse was really well thought of, and Taurus Bay hammered him. Ben Pauling loves him, but you got the likes of Active Innocence, My Daddy Paddy, Lisbane Park. Like there's a good few of them here who just look really, really smart. And I know that the UK have been kind of miles behind, but I was listening earlier on, and Richie Prasad was saying that the kind of smarter trainers like the Gordon Elliots and stuff, they've kind of realised that the way that they were buying horses, they can't kind of keep doing that. So the likes of Ben Pauling, Dan Skelton, Gordon Elliott, they're trying to change the type of horses they're buying. A lot of them have done it. Willie Mullen seemed to has under wraps, but they're all finding their way of getting these horses. And all of a sudden, the UK have got 4 or 5 really smart novice herders. Like, I can't remember this, like
Yeah.
these horses leaving this impression on you. So it's just really interesting now, kind of going onwards. Obviously, Willie, he's a good few to kind of turn out properly yet, but I don't know. That's 4 or 5 there from the UK who
No, I agree.
it
And
could be
one Dermo you did mention was Hurricane Pat. And there's a question later about which trainer would you see kind of falling off a cliff and being the next trainer to kind of go by the wayside. If you'd asked me last Friday, I would have said Gary Moore, and then he'd a 4-timer stand on his
4-time.
Yeah,
your old friend as well, Salva one as well.
Yeah. I always like Salva. Yeah, but Hurricane Pat.
Yeah, but
just
no,
looks
my
like a
actual
different
notebook
level
horse
altogether. Yeah.
Oh God, unbelievable! My
Unbelievable.
horse my actual notebook horse there is the one in second that finished behind him. Hurricane Pat was Soldier Reeves, who I thought looks like a horse when he gets into handicaps. He'd be very smart. That's a decent race. There's a load of them. The UK all of a sudden has some very decent horses. Elsewhere there at Sandown as well, I thought Lulamba was very good for that. His jumping needs to improve, but Nicky Henderson's able to kind of turn this around. Now, he carried 9 pounds less, but he was 6 seconds quicker than the Tingle Creek. He's just a big yoke of a thing, but he's very quick. His jumping needs to get better though. He does jump slow. That needs to improve. But he's only a novice. Like, he'll have a third run, I think, won't he? He's going for the game spirit, which I always like when Nicky mentions a novice going for the game spirit, because he only sends his smart ones to dare. Do you know what I mean? As in, he mentioned that at the Kingmaker, but he said he'd probably go to the game spirit. I love when he does that. I think he's very smart. The Arkle's looking quite good. There's 2 of them, and both of them look like head cases who could do anything, which is really entertaining for an Arkle. The Beecher Chase obviously was thrilled with the results, but God, Bioluminescence would take your eye out there now in that race. She travelled really well. The only thing is, last year in our betting special, I said that it's very hard sometimes to see when JP McManus, when one of their horses is acting the devil, or whether they're just not very good. And I'm struggling to get a proper handle on her. Now, it was her first run in a handicap chase, so JP McManus horses, obviously first time in a handicap, you would kind of tend to avoid them. I thought she travelled up to them really well, and I thought that Jockey Keith Dunn, who was fairly accepting when the kind of, when she wasn't following through, but I thought she jumped the fences really well. She travelled excellently. She loved the ground. If you got a soft ground national or kind of one of the shorter races over that festival, she jumps those fences beautifully. And this was a really good race, but I thought she was a massive eye catcher, and something like of a mark of 147 in a soft ground national, the way she travelled, I think she could be very interesting. But she's one I'm just struggling to get a proper handle on. She's either really well handicapped or she's just not very good. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. And who knows when the day will be. Notebook horses then. I'll go first. A reverse notebook. I would have been Mag Keen if you were to say, what's your best bet over Christmas? I would have said Back to Normal, Paddy Power Chase. And I'm surprised they ran him in the 2.5 mile listed chase at Navan. And then he was kind of going away as you'd expect. You would have thought run into 4th, 5th, lovely. Maybe they think he needs another run. And then to be pulled up in the straight after not getting into the race. So Back to Normal, who I would have flagged up as my horse to follow for the season. We can push. I'm putting a line through him anyway. I won't be backing him for the Paddy Power. And thank God, because I would have had a right cutting him if he hadn't ran at this in the Paddy Power, and he probably would have gone off about 50 on the exchange or something. Here was me lumping in at 16 anti-post. That's what I would have done there. So that's my reverse notebook horse. Tony, your notebook horse in the weekend?
Yeah, kind of mentioned a few already, but I'll just go with a different one here for the cover something else. Maiden Hurdle, who won that? Yes, the 4-year Maiden Hurdle, the same back race at Navan on Saturday. I thought City of Cork now was eye-catching, say this. Joseph O'Brien, they tend to do this sometimes on the flat where they're saying one handicap, like there's dropping them out and then there's doing this, like just extreme dropout tactics where like they're never winning. You don't win Irish, next impossible to win Irish Maiden Hurdles outside the first 7 or 8, and this thing was probably what I'd say what was 24, 25 runners, probably 20 or 24, 25. So yeah, he was dropped out kind of completely. Despite being quite solid in the market, kind of buried in rear, kind of made a good move after 4 out and was kind of really picking ground up very smoothly coming across the side of the track, and then kind of was tender, kind of handled from there. So looking at this first run, he's not really going to be making much appeal this side of handicaps, but when he does, same colours as Steers Hurdle horse. What's his name of him is? Won at Leopardstown last year. Quirky lad.
Sean
by the
Porter.
Lee.
God, home by the league, home by the league. Cork, obviously Cork connections there, so City of Cork, yeah.
The other one at Cork, I thought Lelabo or Lelabo that came down at the
Oh,
last.
no, well,
Go on, yeah, we're
bit
not
iffy,
just positive on him.
yeah, bit iffy on his attitude last season a couple of times. Now, he was going to win, no doubt, but yeah, just wasn't in love with his attitude last season. Someone else said to me yesterday as well.
Yeah, I just thought he was going to win and the form was going to be good because he was going to beat Kazansky or something, the name of the horse that came down at Downroyd, and he was going to hammer him and jumped it fine. And apparently he slipped. I just thought the Gleasons could have another nice one there. John Gleason actually broke his collarbone in the fall, so hopefully John will be back maybe Christmas. You could be lucky with a collarbone, can you be lucky? But then holding onto a horse. I actually, I was going. The wife was. How many years ago was this now? 8 years ago. Hennessy Day. So Johnny Ward and Alex and a couple other friends were coming down from Dublin. We're going on. The wife has gone away with the child up to Monaghan, and I said, "Come down the Saturday, so we'll go on the beer. One last hurrah before hamper season started, right?" And sure, on the Friday night, then before the lads came down on the Saturday, I went for a couple of pints after work, drank 6 pints or 8 pints, too many. And I was walking home with a pizza and the phone, looking at the odds. Do you ever walking in the dark and you're looking at your phone, so you're blinded? Anyway, tripped, pizza one and a door to go, collarbone gone. But the jockeys are soft anyway, because I was making hampers the next day. Like, you just had to get on with it. So if John Gleason isn't back within a week, I won't be impressed. But that's my
holding a horse and holding a hamper is the same thing, is it?
They take a bit of lifting now, and rapping. Dermo, your notebook,
Soldier Reeves, as I mentioned, the first race of Sandown, I just liked the fact that he travelled really well, 2 out, and then kind of just Skelton accepted his fate after a bit of a messy jump, 2 out. But he looks to me like a horse that Skelton's smart enough when he knows a horse isn't at the top level. I'd expect him to have another run or two quiet and then he'll strike in the spring. He looked to me now like a horse that's just below graded level but above handicap level. I think he'll be one to follow in the spring class.
Nice. We're getting better at the English stuff, Darmo, aren't we? We're kind of doing our duty here. Yeah, fair play. And speaking of English, and one of the all-time great tipsters, we're about to hear from Pat Cooney from Bet365. Joined now by Pat Cooney from our sponsors Bet365. Pat, we missed you last week. Were you on holidays? Did you anything nice, or were you off racing somewhere?
No, I was at the Horse Writers Awards in London, and all the great and the good were there, and they let me in as well. So it was a fun afternoon. It's always quite rowdy by the end of the evening, and everyone's hugging each other and kissing each other, which was nice to see. But yeah, I go every year, and it's always good fun.
Is it a boozy one, Pat? Is it one of those?
Yeah, you have to get the trip, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe next year you might wrangle us a nomination next year, Pat. We'll all go over. Dermo and TK will come over as well. But we had another good weekend's racing, Pat, hadn't we? Sadly, your nap, you were going for 5 in a row. Just never, any race, when you're in behind, like your horse, I can't remember the name of it. But when you're in behind in any race, you're just in trouble, aren't you? You're on the back foot. Every race you watch, you seem to need to be handy. And your fella was out the back, and you're nearly writing off your docket straight away, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the one I napped, there was plenty of money around for it. There was a lot of confidence, but like that, it seems to be the pattern these days. You want to be up in the van throughout because if you make a blunder, then you've suddenly got it all to do. So maybe a lesson learned there. But I was happy enough with the other 4 winners.
Yeah. I thought you were going to start to go into odds on to be replacing Johnny Deneen the way you were going, Pat, with all the winners. But all good things come to an end. Really good weekend, especially at Sandown. I thought. You had Lulamba and you had Ilha both very, very good. How does that impact the markets for the Arkle and the Queen Mother?
Well, it's very interesting. I on the flat, I do go by the times considerably. Over the jumps, less so. But the fact of the matter is, on Saturday at Sandown, we had Lulamba and Ilete Tomp run over the same course and distance, just over an hour apart. So I was thinking it'd be interesting to see who went quickest, and both won by 9 lengths. So you could say, well, both won easing down in emphatic fashion. And I was wondering, well, who did go quicker? And I just presumed Elete Tomp would have been the quickest of the 2. But would you believe Lulamba went round in 6 seconds quicker than Ilete Tomp? And
Wow.
I think, well, I don't think people realised that at the time. And as a result of Lulamba doing that, he's now 2-1 joint favourite with Kopek de Borg, who is another superstar as well. So, if times are your thing, and there weren't fences doled off, there wasn't a low sun or anything, I found it hard to believe he went round 6 seconds quicker. And I asked fellas in the office, could they check it as well? And they hand timed it and said, yeah, that was the case. So, it's not a be all and end all, but the Arkle will be a cracker with 2-1 each of two. Add in Romeo Coolio, who I thought was just as visually impressive himself. And he's our third favourite, but of course he was behind Kopech in the Supreme. But yeah, I'm now a paid up member of Lulamba's fan club. I see he's only going to have one run between now and Cheltenham, and that's probably going to be on a left-handed course just to get him in the swing of things. So yeah, I'm Team Lulamba from now on in.
I like to imagine you're a team of gremlins that you can just shout at, hand time that for me. Heaven forbid you do it yourself, Pat, that you'd hand time the finishes, You've a load of lads dancing to your every tune around the office. The one I saw as well, Hurricane Pat, his time was sensational compared to all the other race on the card. You just wonder what times at Sandown, wouldn't you? It's such a unique test ground wise in Everton. I'd say Sandown's just a funny old place. So Lulamba, you're liking for the Arkle, and what does the champion chase market look like now? Because I mean, I don't know what you thought of Majborough. We'll ask you that now, Pat. I mean, Ilete Tomp very good, Majborough very bad.
I would think so. Listen, if I hadn't have watched Majborough yesterday, and I was speaking to you 2 minutes ago, and I said to you, "Oh, how did he run?" And you say, "Well, look, he was given a race fit winner £4, and he was only narrowly beaten, and he made a few blunders, and it was his seasonal reappearance." I'd be going, "Oh, well, that's fair enough then." But it was the manner of the defeat and the manner of how he jumped. And if you're trying to win a champion chase, we think of all the champion chase greats that have been there, and they've all been fantastic chasers, haven't they? They jump a fence. Majborough, I wouldn't know. Is he going to jink left, jink right? I find him desperately hard. I get it. The run's probably okay as a seasonal reappearance, but you didn't look at that and go, wow, did you? And as a result of that, he was 4, he's now 6. Ilete Tomp, he was 6, he's now 11 of 4. And Marine National, the current champion, he's 4-1. I think Marine National's still the one to beat. Ilete Tomp, love him, but he has been at Cheltenham 3 times, and he's been out the frame in all 3. And he has been a winnable proposition in those 3. He wasn't like one of Willie's 66-1 chances, that's making up the numbers. So if you're an Ilete Tomp fan, you got to overcome that. You've been there 3 times and you've been beat all 3 times. So I kind of end up thinking Marine National is still the most likely winner. But look, if Majborough goes left-handed at Leopardstown over Christmas and redeems himself, but just watching it visually, I find him desperately hard to fancy. And yourself?
Yeah, no, geez, that would have really put me off. This time last year when he made his chase debut, I thought he was really, really awesome. I said, this fella could be anything, but his jumping seems to be nearly getting worse and, like you say, unpredictable and very low, I thought. And those Cork fences aren't hardy fences, and he was quite low brushing through them. Now, the Cheltenham fences are soft enough as well, but they come thick and fast. So in terms of a champion chase, I wouldn't like him. I think going left-handed is going to help him at Leopardstown. So maybe he'll look a bit better there. I thought Lada Sud, like, back to Cheltenham, he's after becoming a big price. I think he might be 16-1 with yourselves, Pat. I thought he might be the one because Skelton, he said there was going to be no improvement after the Shloer. Maybe he was just a little bit flat towards the end of the race after that because he had him so right for the Shloer. So I if I was to back one now with a free bet, I'd probably back Lada Sud. Another one we saw in terms of markets going forward, the King George is only 3 weeks away now, Pat. And Jello was very good at Huntingdon in the Peterborough Chase. Has there been much ructions in the King George market after that?
Well, as for Jello, of course, he won our Bet365 Charlie Hall Chase at Wetherby, and he's been the one bright spark in the Venetia Williams stable, really. She hasn't had many winners. We normally associate December and heavy ground with Venetia time, but Jello's the one that's just been the standard bearer for them. He's now 8-1, and I would imagine for the King George, why not run? He's got nothing else to go for, really. Flat track, 3 miles, that should be his cup of tea. But we've been busy in the office this morning on this race and the Savills. We're playing guess the runner really over the Christmas period, and there was quite a bit of money around for fact to file for the Savills at Leopardstown and not the King George today. So if you're thinking of backing fact to file for the King George, I'd hold fire for a bit. I think from what we're seeing today, he's much more likely to turn up at Leopardstown. So you look at fact to file and think, wow, he's a big price, compared to his ability with the rest. But I would imagine what we're seeing today suggests he goes to Leopardstown. And as a result, Gaelic Warrior now 7-4, Django by 2, the Jukebox Man's 5. Banbridge 16, if that floats your boat. Didn't see much of him really over the weekend. So I think Gaelic Warrior's the one to beat. The public do love this horse, and every time he runs, he's a huge gamble.
Yeah, he's a classy animal, Gaelic Warrior. On his day, he'd be the one. So the weekend then, the December Gold Cup is at Cheltenham, and you're sponsoring at Doncaster. So where will you be?
I'll be at Doncaster, and it's Wear a Christmas Jumper Day as well. So I'm digging one out there, and it's always good fun. Plenty of prize money. We sponsor all 7 races, so it's always a big crowd there. Very Christmassy vibe about the place, and then we sponsor a greyhound final at Oxford on the Sunday. So I'll be hot footing it down the motorway to Oxford as well. So busy old boy, and plenty to catch up on. I hope to be going as fast as the Lamber up the man down the roads.
I was raised at Doncaster once, and I thought it was a great track, a great view and track. Lovely the way the parade ring in front of the stand. It's kind of unusual, isn't it? But we went into Doncaster afterwards. Did you ever go into Doncaster for a night out?
No, not me. I'm back to the hotel for me as a rule.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a tremendous track, and it's such a big track as well.
Yeah.
There's always a big crowd. The St. Leger is always a huge day there, and they love their racing up there. It's one of those meetings where the second, third, and fourth get a round of applause coming into the enclosure after the race. So yeah, it's always a good vibe up there, and I'll be the one wearing a ridiculous jumper.
Yeah. Well, you might be safe at the hotel. It's a wild old town now, Doncaster. I mean, if you compare it to the likes of Newbury or Cheltenham, a bit more salubrious. It's a different vibe, but a good vibe at the same time. Enjoy the weekend's racing, and we will chat to you next week. Okay, thanks to Pat there, and we're back with our second rendition of listeners' questions. There's a few of these, lads. Tony, you've thought about this, I would say, more than the other two of us. So I'll go into this one first. Adam Kenny asks, will Gordon Elliott have a better Cheltenham this year? He certainly seems to have a slightly different approach.
God, I don't know if I have thought about this too much, but I would say his run now, he's obviously in a serious vein of form. I'd say the ground has helped him an awful lot. Jared, you were talking about this buy-in policy and stuff, the change like that. Every time a trainer says this, I listen to it, but I'm always reminded of what Peter Chappell-Hayham said. He kind of had the name, it was kind of maybe around the time Authorised was going, but he said he had the name when he started out training from a man for the fast 2-year-old, the Royal Ascot 2-year-old. And then he said to himself, no, I'm going to change now. I'm sick of being pigeonholed as the Royal Ascot 2-year-old man. And he says, yeah, I tried that for 18 months to 2 years, and all I found out was I went from training a few good early 2-year-olds to training just no winners. Like sometimes, what's the phrase? You should stay in your lane a little bit. I think that's definitely a thing with probably with people and with horse trainers as well. So I do kind of wonder about that. But like Elliot historically has been a good to very good Cheltenham Festival train. Like last season, he had one winner, but and probably a plenty of placed horses. Like he talks about rebuilding, he talks about this and that. Like as a gambler, all I see there is variance. You're bound to have a bad. Like, if you're not Willie Mullins, like, everyone else is bound to have a bad Cheltenham here, there, along the way. And I would say, why could he not go one of 3, 4, 5 Cheltenham winners this season? Not about, and maybe that'll be underrated in the market because of last season, because everyone just thinks it's Mullins is the only show in town.
Yeah, I agree. I think the buying policy thing is absolute nonsense. Now he is talking about this, but the buying policy, if he changed on the back of last Cheltenham, isn't going to show anywhere except in 3-year-olds or something like. So that's a complete misnomer. But I do think he could be training them slightly different, Tony, and that's your coming on first run to second run, and maybe he did say on Nick Look today he's targeting the spring a bit more. So there might be slight tweaks there, for Cheltenham, but he's always been able to get them ready for Cheltenham anyway. So I agree with you. I think you'd be buying overs, wouldn't you, on 1.5 for he only had one last year. You'd definitely be buying overs on 1.5. Dermo, question for you from Chris O'Gorman. And he was kind of saying, you're very good. You've this phrase that you back big opinions. And when I thought about it, I said, what kind of shite is this? I don't know what it means, right? So I want to ask you, what do you mean by big opinions? And he says, how do you spot the gaps? And what's your long-term strategy? How do you map? I don't know what map means either. How do you map your long-term strategy and spot the gaps for big opinions?
Big opinions, yeah. It kind of confused me. How I took it was how I wanted to take it, like I do most things in life. That's all all we do nowadays anyway. We just take things as we want it. But
Your truth. You're living your truth, Turbo.
I'm living my own truth nowadays. Yeah. I thought here, Cass, that what he was kind of saying was about the anti-post stuff that I was talking about last week. Just that I do like that. The thing that I've changed massively was there's nothing pissed me off more than when I'd leave at Cheltenham. I would have fancied a horse. This is years ago now. I have this much more right a long time, but I could have left Cheltenham having really fancied one all day and still leave slightly down going, what was I at? I wasn't making my bigger opinions pay. So that's kind of my big one there. But look, my anti-post is still the same approach as last week. I'm always just fun, small bets, trying to find the kind of mad prices. But long term, definitely just for kind of, because we have a glut of new listeners now. Long term, what's worked for me over the last while, or at least what's limited my kind of stupidity at times, is I find focusing on my opinions. Of course, I still have my lucky 15s and all those kind of bets, but my focusing on my kind of few opinions, I just have found that as I'm having winners, I'm making more profit. I know that sounds really basic, but by cutting out and figuring out what I'm good at and what I'm bad at, like handicap hurdles, I tend to do quite well at, and big field, kind of bigger, more classic handicap chases. I've got some kind of misnomers where I've backed the second of the per temps handicap hurdle the last 6 years in a row. So I've actually got the race right and I just keep bumping into one. So there's all those kind of sorts of bits. But what I've got good at is spotting what I'm good at and trying to make that pay cast. That's what I find long term. The better, the more you're aware of what you're doing, the more you can home in on the stuff you're actually good at. If that makes any sense.
Yes, that's where I'm going wrong. I don't have a clue what I'm doing week to week. Dean Ryan, Dermo, again for you. We'll go here. So he says we have a table here. I can't remember who he said, but Nicky Henderson, Paul Nichols, Willie Mullins. Who else did he say? All the big guns are there at the table. Which trainer? There's a few questions in this, but I'll ask him in order. What trainer gets the invite to join you?
I think Gordon Elliott was there as well. You just have to say the next in line. I would be saying the likes of one of the big lads now, the big lads in Ireland that we always focus on. The biggest guy there is. So obviously Robert Tyner would have to go along, Caster.
Yes, very good. Well,
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say Dan Skelton when you started out. I don't think he was on the list. I'd be inviting Venetia Williams anyway. I've always had a soft spot for Venetia. I think she's absolute.
Right. There
Absolute
is some folks have done something like that. You know where they put the airplane seats and the BBC and ENF and where would you like to sit? Like,
Yeah.
to be honest, that's my usual response is, can I stay in the baggage hold? Jesus, I'm happy enough struggling down there looking at some of those seats. But anyway,
Yeah. Tony, we designated Desi to stay at home. So who leaves first and why? So you have to come up with some kind of answer here to keep Dino happy, Dermo.
Who leaves first and why? I'd say Willie Mullins has gone home early, isn't he, to plot his next big win.
Do you know what Willie Mullins drinks? This you're 1,000 to 1 here now. Unless you know it.
Well, I was at Richie's
10,000
party the
to
night
1.
before Cheltenham 2 years, and he was drinking a wine of some variety, I believe, that night that I was there. Anyway.
He drinks now, with my information script, he drinks Armagnac, which is it's a type of brandy. I think I should know actually, but I don't really know. But it's kind of a fancy brandy. So I think he drinks it, and it's seldom he pays for it himself. Anyway, that's from what I
wouldn't
hear,
say he's paid for it. Of course not. Yeah, of course.
Or to be charged to you. And who drinks the most? Dermot, that's the next question. Is it Dean? This is meant to be one question, but you've got 4 in here.
Dean, this is horrendous altogether.
Yeah.
Who drinks the most? Well, look, sure, Willie and his Armagnac. Sure.
Yeah. We'll go. And listen, we've a more serious question here from Farley, and this is going to take a bit.
We all thought about this one. It's a great question from Farley.
So Farley, I know it's long. I'm trying to shorten it down. Farley's actually the barman in Queely's pub, which gets more mentions on here than our sponsors Bet365.
It's a great pub, though. Fantastic
Great pub.
Yeah,
fair play to Farley. It was my dad's birthday today, and we had a few pints last night in Queely's. So Farley was there with good old crack. So I think the first aspect of his question, where we've often spoken, Tony, about the change in shape of races, especially in Ireland, I think. UK races, you always want to be on the front end, but it seems to be more and more so in Ireland. Farley was asking, are hold-up tactics ridiculous? I think was the word he used. Are some yards jockeys missing out from not changing their tactics? And he mentioned Tony Martin, which I think was fair to mention because they are often held up. So, Tony, you can take that first part of Farley's question.
Yeah, look, he comes across as a very sharp lad, and I'm trying to answer his question there. He's answered a lot of it himself. To me, he really knows what he's talking about, and I'm not kind of playing to the crowd saying that. Like, I would broadly agree with the hold up tactics point. He's answered his own question there. Tony Martin point is so valid. Like, every horse with him just seems to be ridden the same, regardless handicap, mid lordal, bump or whatever. I just think with hold up horses, there's loads of ways to get that beat. Pace is obviously probably the number one thing. Then you've trouble. And then you've mistakes, and there's probably another one or two things along with that. The one thing I would say, though, I do think in the bigger races, fewer front runners win. But I think a lot in the day-to-day stuff, maiden hurdles, stuff like that, like Ballydoyle do it all the time. Mullins does it very frequently, I think, as the season goes on. It works for them. It should work for others to a point. He definitely can overcomplicate it. And yeah, I do. I suppose the cardinal sin for jockeys in Ireland historically was, oh, don't go too soon. I feel maybe in the last 3 or 4 years that's flipped. Like,
Yeah. Do you
maybe
know
be
who
a
I
bit more
think got left
proactive.
behind a bit by it? Honestly, now, genuinely one of the nice fellas I've ever met, one of my all-time favourite jockeys. But I thought the last few years, now maybe a bit of it was to instruction, was Dennis O'Regan. Was he a real classy rider, always back the field and bringing him through. But I thought he kind of was leaving out a lot of race behind him in the latter years with that classy kind of hold up Paul Carberry style. And I think, God, if you're doing that this day and age, you're asking for, you're there to be shot at anyway, because it doesn't seem to be the trend. And trend is everything, fashion's everything, whether you're a jockey or a trainer or whatever you are. Speaking of fashion, being ever nice t-shirt there, Dermo. Did you think about this question? Any trainers spring to mind?
I did. The one thing I will say though is I kind of find trends in sports really fascinating. Like Leeds now have their last 3 games now in the Premier League. We've kind of nearly beaten Man City, beaten Chelsea, and drawn with Liverpool. And do you know what the big technical revolution was? Farke went 2 big men up top, and it's just thrown every defender because they haven't seen it since the 90s. And all my which I just find kind of hilarious because obviously back in our day, every team was 4-4-2. Now all of a sudden, this is a real tactical revolution of a thing altogether. What I would just be saying is that I often find with kind of race tactics and everything else that it just falls the way it falls. Definitely the kind of midweek stuff, but I think sometimes it just, in my opinion, obviously, I think we can get bogged down with this sort of stuff when races develop, how they develop. Better Times Ahead won last weekend, as did Richie McClernand on Dean Ryan's favourite horse, the one in Newcastle. They were kind of well held up horses. I think sticking to anything as a religious rule in sport is stupidity and nonsense, and I hate when a jockey goes out too strict with instructions, as in they have to ride the race the way it falls. So whilst it's something that it's a very intelligent question, don't get me wrong, I do think sometimes though we over egg these trends in sports in general, and everything. We're just on this constant circle, and we're just on one point of it now at the moment, and very soon enough then we'll all be back in 10 years time to talking about the new Paul Carberry riding horses always out the back.
Yeah.
It's one of these things I just think it's so cyclical that I don't know, I don't get myself weighed down by it too much anyway.
Yeah. It's nice though, I think, when you're thinking framing races, especially in the UK, those big handicaps. Is there going to be too much pace on, and can you find the one that'll be mid-diff? I like
Yeah,
that.
King George
The
is
the
getting
only
a lot of pace.
The only thing though with that, the projected pace thing is like the jockeys look at that too, and that sometimes they say it's just a argument's sake flat handicap, just having front runners. Yeah, 3 or 4 of them will probably take a look at that and says, well, I'll sit in 4th or 5th today, and you finish up maybe 2 of them are kind of out in front and have between them for a long way out. Like, so I do think the pace thing can be a better what do we say, post-race analysis tool. We're finding the ones that that had no chance with there was no pace on there, or that was a collapse. Trying to guess it before races is difficult.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I love pace as a discussion point, though. We'll come back to it many a time on this podcast, I would imagine. The second part of Farley's question is, what trainer is going to be next to be left behind? by the times and how wrong it would have been with Gary Moore if we went for this question last week. So I'm going to step out of that part. So you can hang yourselves here and say who's going to be left behind by the times if you have an opinion. Either
I
or
think
Tony, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, nasty question.
Yes.
I don't really want to be sticking the boot into people, to be
Yeah,
honest.
same.
Yeah.
I'd say just looking statistically at things on the flat. I think the yard is wrapping up at this stage. But Jim Bolger in the last few years has struggled for winners and stuff like that. I do think the reverse of this is true, though. I think the market can fall in love with the hot new trainer too quickly. We're really, they haven't got the substance to their CV. They're after having 2 winners in the previous fortnight, and their next 5 horses are over bet. And maybe going with the lad that's around 10, 15, 20, whatever many years can offer value against. I definitely feel. Come back to this when you asked about the next trainer, but I definitely think that happens in the flat quite frequently in Ireland. The jumps less so because there's just much less room at the top as we come to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Dermo, yeah, it's not a nice question to have to answer, but then
No.
again, you're entitled to have opinions.
No, oh God, of course, but no, and I think sometimes as well. I think the likes of Robert Tyner and even a few other trainers that have come back this year again. These lads who stay for the long road, they do end up with kind of half reinventing themselves. They're really best of them can do that. So it's I wouldn't again get too hung up on the young guys. What Tony said there's actually really interesting because I can have a few names in my head now of young trainers over the last 2 years that I'd really like, that all of a sudden you're looking at their horses and they're 4 or 5 to 1 in races that you're just wondering how could they possibly be. So that is really interesting. But no, I think the old trainers, the likes of Hobbs has come back flying this season. There's like what I like, likes of Hobbs, he brought Matt Nichols in properly with him. There's a good few trainers who are smart enough to do this. So no, I don't think a lot of them, because even for all the talk of Tony Martin's horses being held up, he still landed a touch 2 weeks ago at Zandabad over Newcastle, and he landed one that you put up last year at Cheltenham, Cass. I'm giving you a big up here, Cass. He's for a man for a man who time is leaving behind. Tony Martin still lands a few touches in here.
Yeah, and another trainer who would have completely written off a couple of years ago, Mouse Morris's horses seem to be running great again.
Really well, yeah, really
few,
well.
few eye catches again. That could be the angle. The next big thing trainer is the last part of Fardy's question. I didn't possibly think to answer now if you ask me. So, but I'm only the host, so I'll just throw it out to the two of ye. Dermo, you can tell us, who do you think is going to be the next big thing? I remember last year you were sweet on Keane Collins. Is he still belting away okay, or is he kind of slowing down?
He's gone quiet, but I think sometimes Keane Collins and these trainers deserve a break. I mean, it's happened to Slattery and the flat. It's happened to Aidan McGuinness a few times. I think when a trainer goes in these mad runs like that, they just end up with a yard full of horses that aren't that well handicapped at the end of it. I think Collins has kind of found himself there. I think he's a quality trainer. There's a few of them. I think there's only like 2 answers in the UK is Pauling or Skelton's already there, but Pauling's going to be Dan Skelton, and Pauling are the future Nichols
already
and Henderson.
There,
I mean, that's
fairness. Pauling. I mean, he's going to have the numbers, and he's good. Yeah.
In Ireland, I really like Ian Donoghue. I like the cut of Ian Donoghue's jib so far. He's landing fierce touches there altogether, and his horse are running well. Overall, I know I break my soul around a stinker last weekend, but a lot of them are running well. His strike rate's only about 10-11%, but that's very selective, and he's just I think he'll be a very good trainer. But the problem with County Meath there is that there's an awful lot of trainers around the same area looking towards the kind of same owners there, and that was Gordon Elliott's big issue for a while. But you got Cromwell, him, Donoghue, Collins, they're all around that kind of same county in Meath. Yeah, that's a lot of owners needed there.
One fella who'd be sitting on both sides of the fence, he was the up and coming trainer and everyone loved him, was Emmett Mullins, and I still think Emmett's a brilliant trainer and well able to get them ready, and people would nearly be kind of writing him off. I think Emmett will could still hit the big time. I just think he's really talented, knows the time of day with in terms of targeting horses to races and getting them ready, and well able to train a good horse like Corbett's Crocs and stuff that we saw.
Pigeonholed a bit, isn't he now?
Yeah, a little bit, but like he's had grade one success. Yeah, I still think if he got a good horse.
He's brilliant. He's a fantastic trainer.
Yeah, he'd be a fella now I'd have mass in that could still come and really break into the big time. Tony, next big time trainer.
Yeah, just to go back to that, I would actually strongly disagree with Mouse Morris' comments there earlier. Oh God, impossible yard to back. No rhyme, no reason to the horse at all. Now, my base point with this would be there is not a lot of room at the top, and the most likely outcome is that no one breaks through. Like that'll be my take. But to me, like it's betting without Quealy, I would say. He's to me the one that looks by far that are outside the top 10, shall we say. Um, he's gone to me from being a bit of a plot yard to just a winning good races yard. Some of these plot yards are impossible to work out for the general punter. Like I would agree with what you're saying about Emma Mullins, Stephen, but very, very difficult to work out.
Yes.
I am not sure that applies to Quealy because he's an interesting character. He strikes me as a fellow with a bit of an ego, and that is, he likes putting the chest out. He likes telling people how good he is. And as a punter, that's actually really useful because when he actually gives an interview, he might actually tell you something that's relevant. He's done this a few times, different things. He said, just give you an example. He had a filly won a bumper at Naas. God, I can't remember the name, but the meeting back, the Brown Lad Day and good kind of meeting.
Yeah, he rode
and she kind of
himself, didn't he?
yes,
Yeah. I remember the horse. Can't think of the name.
She'd run really well the first time up at Naas behind Switch from Diesel, just looked really strong piece of form, and then she went to Roscommon and she was disappointing, and then came back and won at Naas, won well now. And he was interviewed after, just reading the IrishRacing.com, and he kind of said, "No, I made a big mistake running her in Roscommon. I'd left her short. She wasn't ready. I thought the race was a kind of a nothing race. She'd just go and win it anyhow, and she didn't really handle the ground." So to me, now you know that run on Roscommon now is strike a line through it, Joe. She doesn't like nice ground, and she just has a really good progressive profile. So a very good run behind probably the second best bumper mare last season after Switch from Diesel, after Vino Fever, and then winning well at Naas. So I kind of I like that with him. On the flat, Jim, you mentioned Slattery. I would say, to be fair to Slattery, he has actually stood the test of time in the last 2 or 3 years, has kind of improved his yard every year.
Oh, he's a brilliant trainer.
I think he is actually, he has gone through the phase where he's got the badly handicapped ones and he's managed to keep improving them and shifting them on. So I think on the flat, you'd have to give him the world of credit. And then the thing you mentioned about Hobbs, I think that applies maybe on a lower level here, in the sense that something has happened or someone has come in and maybe changed the dynamic in the yard a bit.
Well, Tony, I know a little bit about that. A bit of a Dungarvan connection there. Do you know that yard? They're basically training the horses. They have their own boxes. So Hobbs has his boxes, his owners. This is my understanding. And look, I could be wrong, and I apologise to them if I am wrong. But we're having a chat here about it. But Johnson White has his owners, trainers, and even the jockeys.
You say Matt Nichols it's Johnson White. Sorry, yeah.
The jockeys ride differently for the different trainers. So when you say someone's come in, it's not Johnson White, as far as I know. In a way, I'm not saying they're trained completely separate, but they're two different operations in the one yard rather than being a joint license. Is my understanding, and I'd like to find out more about it and hear, but that's what I hear about that yard.
Yeah, I'm showing me complete ignorance of English racing now. I don't know that, but just sometimes when something comes in that change. But in Ireland, I'm fairly happy me ground that in these two situations something has changed. It's fairly simple. Like it's sons coming back to work with their fathers, who have been away and possibly learned a bit. Like the
Harty.
two again, Harty and McNamara. I'm possibly vulnerable to a wee bit of recency bias here, but I would say the younger generation there
Cooper
probably
as
have a
well.
bit more
Cooper to a degree.
Yeah,
as well.
Cooper,
Yeah.
Josh Moore, Gary Moore, and the Tizzards. There's there's a bit of life going back into those yards, and there happens to be a son there.
Just you'd imagine would maybe be innovating a wee bit and seeing things other yards. So the Harty yard and Eric McNamara. I think, to be fair to Eric McNamara, there'd be more. I think there's been probably 3 years of this kind of 3 or 4 years of Conor McNamara going back there and working with the Harty. There mightn't be just as long or as much substance to it. But yeah, I think both of them are kind of interesting for that kind of. I'm probably not really respected by the market either.
Come here, we're going to go way over the hour, so we have 2 more questions. Richie Hogan, with 3 more, but Richie, we've kind of answered your question. Is the Queen Mother at the Mercyville at Tom? And your other question was, how do you solve a jumping problem like Majborough? And I think we kind of really touched on both those already, Richie. And Tony Gleason asks, what kind of patterns... you're going to read this question out because I didn't take it down. My notes.
I have Tony Gleason's question here.
Yes.
He just asked, discuss the patterns trainers and owners use in the handicap sense. JP second run in the handicap, Cromwell the same. Tyner used to be the same. They'd run nearly 3 or 4 times in the handicap. Charles Burns and Noel Kelly, just no matter how many runs they've had, as long as like the day is the day type of thing. Yeah, good. Again, very good question there. And a fella that's kind of answered his own question and probably knows a bit more than we do. I just think the broad point, like horses win a lower percentage of races on handicap debut than they do on their second handicap. The straight and again, I think on to the second and third handicap run. And there's kind of loads of reasons for that. Like not winning your first handicap just makes so much sense, right? First of all, a very open reason, you're getting handicap experience. Handicaps are run in most cases different to maidens. They're maybe a bit tighter. There's a few more chances, all that type of stuff. Second thing is, but I'd say this is maybe the number one reason, you are not pissing the handicapper off, right? You're not throwing egg in the face there. Oh, we laughed at you. Yeah, you left us. You give us £10 to play with there. You made a mistake there. You're not pissing that handicapper off on the day. You might get dropped a little bit, but then you're also not pissing them off for the horse 5 months later or the horse next year or stuff like that as well. So big picture type stuff. And maybe you're also helping with the price as well, the second handicap role. So I think that broadly, that's kind of point. The JP thing, like, I think second time in handicap, they are much better than first time out. I wouldn't even dream of trying to figure Charles Burns out. Like that's just chess and checker stuff for me.
With Charles Burns, one of the best ones I ever heard was you obviously go maiden hurdle handicap, and second run the handicap or whatever. But Charles Burns landed a touch one day, maiden hurdle down the field, maiden hurdle down the field. What do you expect the next day? You expect maiden hurdle down the field for handicap mark. Punted the ears off it. The third run, the maiden hurdle. I think it was in Limerick one day, 33s and 4s, this kind of thing, and won. So, like he says, like Tony Gleason says, Charles Burns, it's when the day is the right day. I just thought that was a great way to actually land a touch, that the unexpected way, you know.
Yeah. Just to broaden it out, just some handicaps there. Like I obviously seasonality is a big thing with a lot of racing. Like flat, Aidan O'Brien just seems to win everything in Ireland in October. Like juvenile races, over jumps, Elliott up to this time of year. Like the Mullins wave, we presume, is coming with the maiden hurdles now as time goes on. But also negative patterns. Like, and again, I'm not naming names here because I just don't want to be hauled over the coals for. But they're like there's quite a number of trainers who would say who do not improve horses from the first run, are ready first time up and run outwardly promising races in flat maidens, a lot of them, bumpers, a lot of them, including winning them, and they are as likely to go back or stay at the same level as they are to come forward. And I think that's an angle that people could be kind of looking at.
Okay. Dermot, are you happy enough with all that? We've gone to our last question. Ciara Fitzgerald wants to know, and it is the season, so we finish up on a light note. Dermot, we'll go to you first. She wants to know your favourite Christmas song and what does a typical Christmas day in your house look like? Good question, to be fair.
This is a mad question. Yeah, fairy tale.
That's kind of stuff they do up at the ante, so that's the angle we're looking for now.
Yeah,
we're trying
I know,
to get into that
but
space.
You know, they're far more interesting people than I am anyway. But the fairy tale of New York and then Christmas days have changed dramatically now since we've the Baba here, although she's not a Baba anymore. She's 2.5 now. Christmas days would have tended to have been have the dinner and sit down and try and pour through all the cards, but that's completely changed now. So Christmas day now tends to be I go up to my in-laws in Bray, have my dinner there, and then on St. Stephen's Day morning then I spin down to Kerry and try and get up to Croneen's or Mike Murt's bar for the King George. Tends to be the aim of the day. So that tends to be my Christmas and my Stephen's Day tend to kind of blend together. St. Stephen's Day is the Irish version obviously of Boxing Day, so they tend to blend together. What's it like in the Cass household?
Well, Christmas Day, I'd always, myself and Tony have a Christmas tradition. I'd always call it Tony's house Christmas Eve on my way up to Monaghan, where my wife is from. But this year, for the first time ever, the Monaghan crew are coming down, and I have 4 nieces and nephews coming over. I'm going to have a full house in our house. So my plan is to cook Christmas dinner in the shop and escape the madness for a couple of hours, because Christmas for me is crazy. I know I'm always on about it. Got bored people talking about how busy I am at Christmas, but it is mad.
Just listeners, his hands are sore from from counting money, poor old Stephen is.
Not enough cash. Not enough
He
cash.
can't find a big enough abacus to put all his money together.
Yeah. Tony was asking me today. He was paid for a couple of hampers. How do you want to pay? And I was like, cash, obviously. Like, that's the obvious answer. Like, stupid question. But yeah, no, that's so Christmas Day is going to be different. So I'll be going into Queeley's, which to call back is where Declan Queeley drinks his pints in Queeley's bar. Would you believe they're no relation? But I'll be going in there Stephen's Day instead of into Rosslea, County Fermanagh, which I normally would. So it's going to be a different one for me. Favorite Christmas song I love, and there's a big recommendation. A lot of people don't even know this. The Killers have a brilliant Christmas album called "Don't Waste Your Wishes."
Oh.
So they spent years releasing loads of Christmas songs, and you can buy it on vinyl for charity, and it's really, really good. Actually, sorry, as an aside, I heard when we're talking about charity, the John Hunt weekend is on. The December Gold Cup is in aid of kind of charities related to John Hunt's family, and I just think it'd be well worth everyone supporting that and looking into it. I heard him speak really well on Nick Luck, and fair play to him, taking positive action, for want of a better term, and what he's doing. So I'll definitely be supporting that this weekend while we're talking about charity. But yeah, the Killers Christmas album, Christmas in LA, a belter. Joseph, Better You Than Me, a belter. There's a few great tunes on it, right? So that's my recommendation. Tony, your favourite Christmas song and a typical Christmas day?
Yeah. I'm not even going to try to find the Christmas song thing. Will you go way out of that? Will you have absolutely no opinions we're talking about there? Oh, Christmas Day, yeah, Christmas.
All these fellas on the YouTube comments saying that Tony's a miserable out. They're gonna like that. You're on brand.
Absolutely right. They're so right. Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, I just like it's a small bit of a military operation. Like I just have to get the card studied by like kind of 1 or 2 o'clock on Christmas Eve. So get him from the 23rd. I just head down, like study, because I've cooked for my wife's family on Christmas Eve, and I've cooked for them on Christmas Day as well. And obviously Santa arrives in their house on Christmas Day. And my kids like to get up early now, and Christmas Day they like to get up very, very early. So yeah.
And do you host many, Tony? Would you have many? So Christmas Day is in your house. How many would you have over?
Yeah, 10 or 12 maybe. Yeah. So decentish crowd now, but I wouldn't be on a par with you now and your kind of culinary expertise and stuff like that. But I'd knock something together.
You're a good
and
man to have the mulled wine on the pot now.
Yeah. In fairness, my wife does that. She's the authority on the mulled wine and that. But I kind of do the sustenance, shall we say. And then on St. Stephen's Day, I head up to my parents now and stuff like that. And yeah, I'd like to say I chat to them all, but invariably I just have the Racing TV Irish YouTube up for 4 hours. But anyway, trying to see what won the tournament then, right? Awful kind of stuff. But anyway, sure, look, look, Leopards, the reality is, lads, like Leopardstown is just busy. Like, there's a lot of Irish racing, and sure, there's a lot of horses there. Like, kind of, I can't be giving out about it. I'm paid to be in the industry and write about it. You just have to put in the few hours. It is what it is. And it is like Leopardstown at Christmas, like absolutely brilliant racing. So some like whatever with the racing been good now leading up to Christmas, invariably throws up some of the best.
Yeah. Well, look, listeners, enjoy the run into Christmas. It's not long to go now, and we will chat to you next week. Thanks to our sponsors, Bet365, Gambling.com. For me, Stephen Cass, Tony Keenan, Diarmuid, Nolan, we will talk to you all next week.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding Cordan Star into submission.